Something I don't need is another 486 machines. I have a lot of 486 machines because somehow they just seem to tickle my nostalgia nerve. Like my first machine was a 486, but at this point I have a few machines and I don't need another 486 machine. Anyway, here's my latest purchase. This is a this is a 486 motherboard. Now I found this for a reasonable deal and I bought it because I kind of want to build one of those, you know, super fast 486 machines, something like an AMD 5x86, also known as X5, also known as 486DX5, you know, the really fast ones that go up to like 133 or 160 megahertz. And this is a PCI motherboard. I don't have another 486 motherboard that has PCI slots. I think VLB is really cool, but why not try building like a really late 486 machine, something that has PCI graphics and just, you know, a real top of the line late model 486 system. And this board is really late. I mean, look at this sticker. May 1996, removal Vodis warranty. Yeah, this is a very late model. I don't know if May 1996, if that's supposed to be when the warranty expires or when the board was made, but looking at the chips, you can see some 1995 date codes. So this is 10th week, this cache chip is the 10th week of 95. This is the 9th week of 95. This one is the 9th week of 95. This one is the 34th week of 94. Here we got 9503, so 3rd week of 95. So this is definitely 95 or possibly 96. And that is quite late for a 486 motherboard. So this would have been a budget solution at the time for people who couldn't really afford or didn't need Pentiums. But being a late model board, it's cool in that it has a lot of CPU support. You can see here it supports DX50s, DX40s, and it says in the manual or like on the internet that it also supports Pentium overdrives and Zurich CPUs and basically every kind of 486 CPU. And I'm quite confident that it will run the 133 megahertz ones as well, even though it doesn't say here. It does support a 50 megahertz bus as well as 40, so that's good because we're probably gonna try running this on a 40 megahertz bus. If we get a 133 megahertz CPU, we're gonna probably try overclocking it to 160 because that's usually possible with those AMD CPUs. This is a Soyo board. It's the 030H2. This is the model number. And I can find information on the internet about the 030G and the 030H. And this, I guess, is the second revision of that. I'm not sure what's different, but if you look up the 030H, it looks identical to this board. Another cool feature of this board is it has IDE on board. Now, if you weren't around at the time, 486 and earlier motherboards usually didn't come with IDE on the motherboard. Usually you had to use an ISA, multi-IO, or IDE controller. So that's cool that it has those. It does, however, not have a floppy or serial or parallel on the motherboard. So we'll have to get cards for those. But yeah, here's the problem. This was sold as not tested. And this is a barrel battery. You already know where this is going. Can you see that? There's quite a bit of corrosion. The corrosion has even seeped into the keyboard connector. Can you see that? And here on the AT power connector, you can see some of the corrosion as well as on the pins of the IDE connectors. And here around this hole, I can't really see much on the other side of the board. That looks fairly clean. And if we're lucky, none of the traces are bad, but you can see here and here and here. This one is particularly, this is such a thin trace that maybe this is bad. We're going to test continuity and see if that's eaten all the way through or not. But overall, I mean, I've seen worse. We should be able to clean this up, but first things first, we should just snip off this evil thing. And this is not the best tool. This is way too big. All right, well, I didn't have a more appropriate tool, but I managed to, yep, there it goes. I managed to get it off, and ooh, that's some nasty stuff. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, but as you can see, this looks like it has provisions for just a regular CR2032 battery holder. So we're gonna see if we can salvage one of those from maybe a broken motherboard or something. And otherwise, I believe this also has an external battery header. So we could potentially just connect something to the external battery header. But let's look at the damage. And it doesn't look that bad. I mean, it's bad, but it's not that bad. But we have this. And this, of course, is white vinegar concentrated. So this is basic, like this is a chemical base, and this is an acid, so it's gonna neutralize I mean, people say battery acid, but this is not acid, this is actually basic. So this is gonna neutralize that, and then we can clean it off, and hopefully this is gonna work, maybe. So all right, we got some of this, and we've got an old toothbrush, so we're just gonna scrub it, and you can see the reaction, like you can see it bubbling away. Yep, so I'm gonna scrub every place I can find that has corrosion. And this, like, I noticed that there is corrosion inside of the keyboard connector. That's gonna be tough. I might have to desolder that. Hopefully not, but maybe. And although I don't really see any corrosion on the bottom of the board, maybe just around this hole, we're gonna do a bit of a scrubby scrub here as well, just in case, because I don't know how this works, but this corrosion has a tendency to really like physically spread throughout the board, which is weird. I don't understand how that works, but it does do that. So we really need to make sure that we get all this as clean as possible. Oh, and now it's, oh, well, good thing I'm not going to be powering this board up for a while because it's getting all wet with vinegar. I'm not going to power it up for a while because I don't actually have a loose AT power supply at the moment. I've ordered one of those ATX to AT adapters so I can use an ATX power supply, but it hasn't arrived yet. So we're going to do our best to clean this up today, and then I'm going to return and I'm going to try you know, powering the board up. I do have AT power supplies, but they're all in functioning machines, and I'm not going to disassemble a functioning machine just to do this. Probably. Maybe. Anyway, I'm gonna get some alcohol and some wiping paper. So all the cool kids use isopropyl alcohol to clean up stuff like this. I use what I got. This is just denatured ethanol. I mean, it's alcohol. This is not rocket science. It's gonna work. So first we're just gonna wipe off all the excess vinegar. And I see that I still haven't gotten all of it off the ID connector, so we're gonna do a bit more brushy brush, just to make sure we get it all off. This is actually very similar to brushing your teeth, except the teeth are IDE pins and the toothpaste is vinegar. But you do have to get it really clean. That's the commonality here. So yep. And I'm just gonna take a look and see that I've got, I mean, I can't see any green stuff. So I mean, this looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So we're gonna try wiping it off, and I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like, these paper towels are not really the proper tool for the job, but again, I don't really have anything more proper. What is the expression, like, you run what you brung, right? And this is a jumper. Oh, here's the date code for the board itself, 9509. So 9th week of 1995, which is interesting because some of the chips, like, yeah, the SIS chipset, that also has a date code of 9509, so that would have been brand spanking new at the time the board was made. So again, this is a late 486 board. I got my first 486 in 1995 as well, late 95. So 486s weren't, like, they were still viable as a budget machine, but they were definitely on their way out. But a late model 486 board like this, with one of these really fast CPUs, like the one we're going to install, the 133 megahertz 5x86. I mean, those would have been a very competitive choice for people who just wanted to run, you know, the normal software of the time. A CPU like that would have been competitive with, like, a Pentium 75, except in floating point applications. So once people started playing Quake, you know, boards like this were pretty much out of the game. But for normal home users, for people who wanted to play slightly older games, for people who wanted to just do their Word and their Excel and their taxes and so forth, these would have been very viable, very price competitive machines in 95. That's looking all right, I suppose. I am going to clean my toothbrush so I can use it for alcohol. It's pink, so you know not to drink it because it's denatured. All right. So we're gonna do more scrubby scrub to get the vinegar residue off the board. And again, I'm quite unsure about this keyboard connector. I'm trying to get the bristles in there and clean it off as well as I can, but you know, you never know. You never know. But I guess, like, I'm not sure what the difference is between isopropyl alcohol and just normal ethanol for things like this. I think isopropyl alcohol dries faster, which, I mean, it's a good thing, but this works. Like, as far as cleaning, this is gonna work just as well, probably. And I'm I'm making a real mess here, but you know. So I'm not sure how well you can see this, but right here I scraped off just enough of the solder mask to expose some bare copper, and here is one of the leads for the battery, and you can see that there is no continuity. So you can actually kind of see a break right here, and this might also be a break. Like you can see, this is pretty bad. This is probably a break, but over here there's definitely a break. So this trace is looking pretty bad. These two traces are also very suspect, and this one isn't looking too hot either. So I'm going to try to find a knife. So we're going to really carefully scrape off some of the solder mask here. So the probes aren't actually touching each other, but you can see that I've scraped off enough solder mask to expose some bare copper in this region on this really thin trace. And then we're going to do the same on the other side of the battery damage, which would be right about here. So now we've got bare copper here and here, and we can see that on this thin trace there is actually still continuity. So this trace, despite its looks, this is actually fine, at least from here to here. So this will not need repairing right now, at least. So that's good. We're also going to check out these two. So again, I mean, I know you're not going to be able to see this very well, but these two thin traces, I scraped off the solder mask right there and right there. And this suspect part, we're gonna see if there is continuity. And it looks like these two traces are dead, actually. I can't seem to get any response out of these two. So these two thin traces are definitely gone. This bigger trace that goes to the battery needs to be repaired. This one is all right. I'm gonna look for more traces, and I'm gonna see if I can find exactly where the break is. I've been scraping off more solder mask, and you can just see that these two traces, they're just a total mess. There's breaks in multiple places. Like I'm gonna see if I can point them out. This right here is a break, and then this has a big break right here. And then there's this and this and this, and this is gonna need some pretty extensive repair. And unfortunately, these two are very close together. So it's gonna be quite hard to repair. I'm not I'm not that experienced with this kind of stuff, to say the least, but I think maybe we can route it like from here to there, like just pull it out a bit, and that will leave us some more room to repair this trace. Maybe we're gonna see what we can do. Hopefully we can get this working. But at this point, I'm also thinking that I probably need to desolder the keyboard connector, because one, it's gonna be much easier to repair this without this big thing in the way, and also I'm afraid of what might be lurking underneath of here. So I think we're definitely going to desolder the keyboard connector. So I got my soldering iron set to 350 degrees Celsius, and I got my soldering braid. We're gonna see what we can do. Alright, well, I didn't film that whole train wreck. I ended up applying a lot more heat to the board than I'm actually comfortable with, but it was the only way. But here it is. I got the connector off. So yeah, now we can see what's going on under the connector. And I mean, there's not a lot to see really, but this will be very helpful. It will be easier to clean the connector properly now that it's loose. And yeah, we can see what we're doing when we're gonna try to repair these traces. So yeah, that's good.